The sky was burning. Yuna stood at the entrance of the underground bunker and watched the orange flames rise from the distant city. She could hear the sounds of explosions even from here. The ground shook every few minutes as another bomb fell from the sky. Behind her, hundreds of Valorians huddled together in fear. They were tall beings with silver skin that changed color with their emotions. Right now, most of them glowed a deep blue, the color of terror. She had been the human ambassador to this world for 3 years. In that time, she had learned to love these gentle people. The Valorians had never known war. They had no army, no weapons, no soldiers. They were scientists, artists, and dreamers. They had joined the Galactic Coalition because they wanted to trade and learn from other species. They never imagined that anyone would want to hurt them. But the Keth Empire did not care about peace or trade. They wanted planets. They wanted slaves. They wanted power. And the Valorians had something they desired, a beautiful world rich in rare minerals. 3 days ago, 200 Keth warships had appeared in the sky. They gave the Valorians 1 hour to surrender. When the Valorians tried to negotiate, the Keth started bombing their cities. Now millions were dead. Millions more were running for their lives. High Elder Torvin walked up to Yuna with slow, tired steps. He was old, even by Valorian standards. His silver skin had faded to a pale gray over the centuries. He had led his people through times of great discovery and happiness, but he had never led them through anything like this. "Ambassador Yuna," he said, his voice was weak and broken, "please, you must help us. Your species promised protection when we joined the coalition. We are dying, my people are dying." Yuna turned to face him. She was small compared to the Valorians. Most humans were, but there was something in her eyes that made Torvin feel like she was looking right through him. A calm that seemed strange in the middle of so much chaos. "I know," she said simply. "I have already contacted Earth Command." Hope flickered in Torvin's chest. "You have? What did they say? How many ships are they sending? When will they arrive?" "They said they understood. They said they are responding." Torvin waited for more. When nothing came, his hope began to fade. "That is all, they understood. What does that mean? Are they sending 5 ships? 10? Do they even care?" Yuna did not answer immediately. She looked back at the burning horizon for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was soft but certain. "Elder Torvin, I need you to understand something about humans. We are a strange species. We come from a world that tried to kill us every single day. Predators hunted us. Diseases attacked us. The weather froze us and burned us. We fought each other for thousands of years over land, resources, and ideas. We almost destroyed ourselves many times." She paused as another explosion lit up the sky. "But we survived. And do you know how we survived? Not because we were the strongest or the fastest or the smartest. We survived because when one of us was in danger, the others came running. All of them. It did not matter if the danger was small or big. It did not matter if it made sense. When family was threatened, we responded with everything we had." Torvin shook his head in confusion. "I do not understand. What are you trying to tell me?" Yuna smiled. It was a small smile, but there was something behind it that Torvin could not identify. Something that made him feel both comforted and afraid at the same time. "I am trying to tell you that when you joined the coalition, you became family. And humans do not abandon family. Ever." "But what does that mean in practice?" Torvin pressed. "The Keth have 200 warships. Our intelligence says humans have perhaps 40 or 50 ships in this region. That is not enough. That is not nearly enough." "You are correct," Yuna agreed. 40 ships would not be enough." Before Torvin could respond, a young Valorian ran up to them. His skin was flashing between blue and white in rapid patterns, pure panic. "High Elder, Ambassador, the sensors. Something is happening. The Keth ships are moving. They are taking new positions. Something is coming." Torvin felt his heart sink. More Keth ships, of course. They were bringing more forces to finish the job. His people would be wiped out completely. There would be nothing left. How many? He asked, already dreading the answer. The young Valorian looked at his data tablet with wide eyes. I do not know. The sensors cannot count them all. They just keep appearing. Hundreds. No, more than hundreds. The system is overloading. Yuna walked past them both toward the sensor station. Her steps were calm and measured. She looked at the readings for a long moment, then turned back to Torvin. Elder Torvin, I told you that humans do not do things the way other species do. When you asked for support, you expected us to send what was reasonable, what was logical, what was proportional to the threat. She gestured toward the sensor display. That is not how humans think. We do not send what is proportional. We send what is necessary. And when someone threatens 4 billion innocent lives under our protection. The bunker shook as something massive entered the atmosphere above them. But it was not a bomb. It was not an attack. Through the bunker's small windows, Torvin could see shapes descending from the sky. Human shapes, dropships, dozens of them, hundreds of them. What is necessary, Yuna continued, is everything we have. Torvin stared at the sensor readings in disbelief. Ships were still arriving, warships of every size and type. They filled the space around his planet like a metal cloud. The numbers kept climbing, 300, 500, 1,000, 2,000. This is impossible, he whispered. You cannot have this many ships. No species has this many ships. We called every fleet that could reach you in time, Yuna said. The 3rd Fleet, the 5th Fleet, the 7th Fleet, every reserve unit, every patrol vessel, every ship that could carry a weapon or a doctor. She put a gentle hand on his arm. You asked for support, Elder Torvin. I am sorry, but humans do not know how to give just support. We only know how to give everything. Above them, the human fleet finished arriving. 3,427 warships now stood between the Keth Empire and the people of Kethai's prime. And aboard the flagship, Admiral T looked down at the planet with cold, determined eyes. His crew moved around him in perfect silence. They all knew why they were here. They all knew what needed to be done. Open a channel to the Keth commander, T ordered. Channel open, sir. T straightened his uniform and stared into the camera. Keth Fleet, this is Admiral T of the United Earth Defense Force. You have attacked a member of the Galactic Coalition. You have killed innocent civilians. You have one chance to surrender unconditionally. If you refuse, we will destroy every single one of your ships. You have 5 minutes to decide. He cut the transmission and turned to his tactical officer. Begin target acquisition on all enemy vessels. If they do not surrender in 5 minutes, we end this. In the bunker below, Torvin watched the human ship spread across his sky like a protective blanket. His people were crying, but for the first time in 3 days, they were not tears of fear. They were tears of hope. The humans had come, not with support, not with a small force, they had come with everything. And the Keth had no idea what they had awakened. Commander Reth stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Iron Claw, and stared at his display screens in complete disbelief. His mouth hung open. His 4 eyes blinked rapidly. His clawed hands gripped the armrests of his chair so hard that the metal began to bend. This cannot be right, he said. Run the scan again. His second officer, Collies, shook his head. I have run it 5 times, Commander. The numbers are accurate. There are over 3,000 human warships surrounding us. 3,000. Reth felt something he had not felt in a very long time. Fear. Real, cold fear that crawled up his spine and wrapped around his throat. He had brought 200 ships to conquer this pathetic world. 200 of the finest warships in the Keth Empire. It had seemed like more than enough. The Valorians had no military. They could not fight back. This was supposed to be easy. But now those 200 ships were surrounded by a force more than 15 times their size. Human ships filled every direction. Massive dreadnoughts the size of small moons. Fast destroyers that moved like predators, carriers that held hundreds of smaller fighters. The Keth fleet looked like a small island in an ocean of human metal. "How is this possible?" Reth demanded. "Intelligence said humans had a small fleet, 40 ships, maybe 50. Where did all of these come from?" Collies pulled up old reports on his screen. "Our intelligence was based on human ships stationed in this region, Commander. It appears. It appears they called ships from everywhere else." "Everywhere else? What do you mean everywhere else?" "The entire human military, sir, or at least a significant portion of it. They mobilized everything they could." Reth slammed his fist on his armrest. "For the Valorians, they brought their entire military for these worthless silver creatures. Why? The Valorians have nothing. They are weak. They cannot even defend themselves." Collies hesitated before answering. "That may be exactly why, Commander. The humans seem to view the Valorians as friends, allies. They appear to take such relationships very seriously." "Seriously enough to bring 3,000 warships?" "Yes, sir." Reth stood up from his chair and began packing the bridge. His officers watched him nervously. They had served under him for many years. They had seen him calm in the face of battle, steady under pressure, confident in victory. They had never seen him like this. "Contact High Command," Reth ordered. "Tell them we need reinforcements immediately." The communications officer worked at his station for a moment, then looked up with bad news. "Commander, our long-range communications are being jammed. The human fleet is blocking all signals in and out of this system." "Then use a message drone." "They shot down our last 3 message drones before they could jump to lightspeed. The humans have picket ships at every exit point. Nothing is getting out of this system." Reth stopped packing. He was trapped, completely and utterly trapped. His fleet was surrounded by an overwhelming enemy force, and he could not even call for help. He had walked into a cage, and the door had slammed shut behind him. "Commander," Collies said quietly, "the human admiral is hailing us. He is demanding our surrender." Reth turned to face the main screen. "Put him through." The image that appeared was not what Reth expected. The human was not large or impressive. He was of average height, with a lean build and a face that showed his age. His hair was gray at the temples. His uniform was neat but simple. He looked like a grandfather, not a warrior. But his eyes were what made Reth's blood run cold. Those eyes held no anger, no hatred, no emotion at all. They were the eyes of someone who had made a decision and would see it through no matter what. The eyes of someone who had already won and was simply waiting for the enemy to realize it. "I am Admiral T of the United Earth Defense Force," the human said. His voice was calm and measured. "Your fleet has attacked a member species of the Galactic Coalition. You have killed millions of innocent civilians. You have 5 minutes to surrender unconditionally. If you do not surrender, we will destroy every ship in your fleet. There will be no further negotiation." The transmission ended. Reth stared at the blank screen for a long moment. Then he began to laugh. It was not a happy laugh. It was the laugh of someone who had just realized how badly he had miscalculated. "The humans," he said. "We were warned about them. Do you remember, Collies? When we first started planning this operation, some of our advisors warned us about the humans." "I remember, Commander. You dismissed their concerns." "Yes, I did. I said they were small and soft. I said they came from a primitive world. I said they were new to the galactic stage and could not possibly be a threat." Reth shook his head. "I was a fool." He walked to the main viewport and looked out at the human fleet. The ships seemed to go on forever. Each one was a weapon of war, crewed by beings who had come across the stars specifically to fight him. Not for territory, not for resources, just because he had hurt people they had promised to protect. "Do you know what the reports actually said about humans?" Reth asked. "Some of it, Commander. They said humans are a species that evolved on a death world. Their planet tried to kill them every single day for millions of years. Predators, diseases, natural disasters, extreme temperatures. Most species would have gone extinct, but humans did not. They fought, they adapted, they survived, and they developed an instinct that no other species in the galaxy seems to have. What instinct? Reth turned back to face his second officer. The instinct to protect their own at any cost. Other species calculate risk and reward. They weigh the cost of war against the potential gain. If the cost is too high, they back down. It is logical. It is rational. It is what every intelligent species does. He paused. But humans do not think that way. When someone they care about is threatened, they do not calculate. They do not weigh costs. They simply respond. With everything they have, all of them together. It does not matter if the odds are against them. It does not matter if it makes no logical sense. They come anyway. Collies processed this information. So when we attacked the Valorians, we did not just attack the Valorians. We attacked people the humans had promised to protect. We threatened beings they considered friends. And in human culture, that is the worst thing you can possibly do. The 5-minute timer was counting down on every screen. 4 minutes left. "What are your orders, Commander?" Collies asked. Reth thought about his options. He could fight. His 200 ships against their 3,000. It would be a slaughter, not a battle but an execution. His entire fleet would be destroyed in hours, maybe less. He could surrender, give up his ships, his crew, his honor, face the judgment of human courts, spend the rest of his life in a prison cell if they even allowed him to live. He could try to run. Some ships might escape. A few might make it past the human blockade, but most would be destroyed in the attempt. None of the options were good. All of them ended with his defeat. The only question was how many of his people would die along the way. "Commander," the communications officer said, "several of our captains are requesting instructions. They want to know if we are going to fight." Reth looked at the timer, 3 minutes. He thought about his family back home, his mate, his children, his grandchildren. If he died here, he would never see them again. If he surrendered, he might live, but he would bring shame to his entire bloodline. "The humans," he said slowly. "They are protecting 4 billion Valorians, beings they have known for only a few years, beings who cannot offer them anything in return, and they brought their entire military to do it." He shook his head in something that might have been admiration. What kind of species does that? What kind of beings care so much about others that they would risk everything to protect them? 2 minutes. "Commander, we need your orders." Reth made his decision. He walked back to his command chair and sat down heavily. His crew watched him with desperate eyes, waiting to hear what he would say. "Open a channel to the human flagship." "Channel open, sir." Reth straightened his back and looked into the camera. He had never surrendered before. He had never even considered it. But today, he had learned something important. There were forces in this galaxy more powerful than military might or imperial ambition. The force of beings who would do anything for their friends. "Admiral T," he said, "this is Commander Reth of the Keth Imperial Fleet. I accept your terms. My fleet will stand down and surrender unconditionally." He cut the transmission and slumped in his chair. The battle was over before it had even begun. The humans had won. And the galaxy would never forget what happened today. The Keth fleet did not surrender all at once. Commander Reth gave the order, but not every captain obeyed. Admiral T watched his tactical display as most of the enemy ships powered down their weapons and raised their signal flags of surrender. But 37 ships did not. Their captains had decided that death in battle was better than the shame of surrender. They broke formation and charged directly at the human fleet. "Admiral," Lieutenant Hanna reported from the communication station, "we have 37 hostile vessels incoming. They are not responding to our hails." T nodded slowly. He had expected this. Some warriors could not accept defeat. They would rather die fighting than live with the knowledge that they had lost. He understood that instinct. He did not share it, but he understood it. "Target those vessels," he ordered. "All other ships maintain position around the surrendered fleet. I want no one else trying to escape." "Yes, Admiral." The 37 Keth ships raced toward the human line. They fired everything they had: missiles, plasma bolts, kinetic rounds. The space between them lit up with the fury of their assault. But there were only 37 of them, and there were over 3,000 human ships waiting. The battle lasted less than 4 minutes. Human destroyers moved in perfect coordination, cutting off the enemy's escape routes. Cruisers provided covering fire while dreadnoughts unleashed their main weapons. Each Keth ship was targeted by dozens of human vessels at once. They never stood a chance. When the last enemy ship exploded in a ball of fire and twisted metal, Admiral T did not celebrate. He did not smile or cheer or feel any satisfaction. He simply turned to his next officer. "Casualties." "3 human ships damaged, Admiral. No ships destroyed. 14 crew members injured. No deaths on our side." T closed his eyes for a moment. 14 injured. That was 14 too many. But it could have been so much worse. It would have been so much worse if they had allowed this to become a real battle. "Send medical teams to assist the injured, and begin processing the surrendered Keth vessels. I want their crews transferred to holding ships within the hour. Treat them with respect but keep them secure." "Yes, Admiral." Lieutenant Jin approached from the tactical station. He was young, barely 25 years old, but he was one of the best tactical officers in the fleet. "Admiral, what about the planet? There are still Keth ground forces down there. They landed several thousand troops before we arrived." T turned to look at the planet below. Kethis Prime, a beautiful world of blue oceans and green continents, now scarred by the marks of war. Smoke rose from a dozen cities. Fires still burned in the countryside. 4 billion Valorians were down there, hiding, running, dying. "Prepare the ground assault teams," T said. "I want every Keth soldier on that planet captured or neutralized within 24 hours. And Jin." "Yes, Admiral." "Make sure our troops understand the rules. These are occupation forces, not defenders. The Valorians are the victims here. I want minimal collateral damage. Protect the civilians at all costs." Jin nodded and hurried off to relay the orders. T walked to the main viewport and looked down at the planet. Somewhere down there, Ambassador Yuna was waiting in a bunker with the survivors. She had done her job. She had called for help, and help had come. Now it was his turn to finish what she had started. His communicator beeped. He answered it. "Admiral, this is Captain Myra of the 3rd Assault Division. My teams are ready to deploy. We have 40,000 ground troops prepared for insertion." "Good. Coordinate with the local human embassy for civilian locations. I want our people on the ground in 1 hour. Priority targets are the Keth command centers and heavy weapon positions. Secondary targets are all enemy troop concentrations. Third priority is search and rescue for civilian survivors." "Understood, Admiral. We will not let you down." "I know you will not." T ended the call and continued staring at the planet. He thought about the last time he had seen a world like this. A world burning. A world in pain. It had been 6 years ago, on a small colony at the edge of human space. The Keth had raided that colony. They had come looking for slaves. They had taken 200 people, including his daughter. He never saw her again. For 6 years, that memory had lived inside him like a burning coal. He had requested transfer after transfer, trying to get closer to Keth space, trying to find a way to make them pay for what they had done. His superiors had always refused. There was no justification for war, they said. No political reason to risk open conflict with the Keth Empire. And then the Valorians had called for help. When Admiral T heard about the distress call, he had volunteered immediately. He had called in every favor he had earned over 30 years of service. He had convinced 3 fleet admirals to combine their forces. He had done everything in his power to make sure that this response would be overwhelming. Not for revenge, not for his daughter, but because he would not let another family feel the pain that he had felt. He would not let another father lose a child to these monsters. He would not let the Keth hurt anyone else ever again. Admiral, Lieutenant Hana's voice pulled him from his thoughts. The ground assault teams have launched. Estimated arrival on the surface in 15 minutes. Thank you, Lieutenant. The first wave of dropships fell from the human carriers like metal rain. Thousands of ships, each carrying soldiers, equipment, and supplies. Medical teams followed close behind, ready to treat the wounded. Engineering teams came next, prepared to repair damaged infrastructure and restore basic services. This was not just a military operation. This was a rescue mission, the largest rescue mission in human history. T watched the dropships descend toward the planet. Each one was a promise that help had arrived, a promise that the nightmare was ending, a promise that the Velorians were not alone anymore. On the surface, the Keth ground forces saw the ships coming and knew that their situation had changed. They had expected reinforcements from their fleet. Instead, they saw human dropships filling the sky like a swarm of angry insects. Their commander, a brutal officer named Krath, tried to organize a defense, but his troops were spread across the planet, occupying cities and guarding prisoners. They were not prepared for a full-scale human invasion. All units fall back to defensive positions, Krath shouted into his communicator. Concentrate our forces at the main command center. We will hold out until reinforcements arrive. But no reinforcements would come. The Keth fleet was either destroyed or captured. Help was not coming. The only ships in the sky were human ships, and they were coming for him. The first human soldiers touched down in the capital city just as the sun was setting. They moved with precision and purpose, clearing buildings, securing streets, and freeing Velorian prisoners. Every soldier knew their mission. Every soldier knew why they were there. Private D was one of the first to enter the main detention center. He kicked down the door and swept his rifle across the room, checking for threats. What he found instead made his heart ache. Hundreds of Velorians, men, women, and children, packed into tiny cells like animals. Their silver skin was dull and gray from lack of food and water. Their eyes were empty from days of fear and hopelessness. When they saw the human soldiers, many of them started crying. "It is okay," D said, lowering his weapon. He spoke slowly, hoping they could understand. "You are safe now. We are here to help. The humans have come." One young Velorian child approached him carefully. She was so small, barely reaching his waist. Her silver skin flickered with uncertain colors. "Are you real?" she asked. "We heard the Keth talking. They said humans would not come. They said nobody cared about us." D knelt down so he could look her in the eyes. He removed his helmet so she could see his face, his human face, real and present and here. "They were wrong," he said gently. "We care. We came as fast as we could, and we are not leaving until every single one of you is safe." The child stared at him for a long moment. Then she threw her arms around his neck and held on tight. She was shaking with relief and hope and the release of days of terror. D held her carefully, mindful of how fragile she seemed. Around him, other soldiers were opening cells and helping survivors to their feet. Medical teams rushed in to treat the injured. Someone was distributing food and water. Outside, the sounds of battle echoed through the city as human forces engaged the remaining Keth troops. But in here, in this small detention center, there was only the sound of crying. Crying in hope. The humans had come, and they had brought salvation with them. The battle for Kethai's Prime lasted 18 hours. It was not a battle in the traditional sense. The Keth ground forces were outnumbered, surrounded, and cut off from any support. They had no hope of victory, but some of them fought anyway. They fought because they were trained to fight. They fought because they did not know how to do anything else. They fought because they were afraid of what would happen if they surrendered. In the end, it did not matter. The human military was too large, too well organized, and too determined. By dawn of the next day, every major Keth stronghold had been captured. Their commander, Krath, was taken alive and placed in custody. His soldiers were disarmed and loaded onto transport ships bound for prison facilities. Admiral T received the final report while standing on the bridge of the Indomitable. Total Keth casualties, approximately 2,000 killed, 8,000 captured. Total human casualties, 43 killed, 207 wounded. Total Valorian casualties during the liberation, less than 500, most of them caught in crossfire when Keth soldiers used them as shields. 43 humans dead. T read each name on the casualty list. He made himself remember everyone. These were people who had traveled across the stars to save strangers, people who had given their lives for beings they had never met. Their sacrifice deserved to be honored. Admiral, Lieutenant Hanna approached with a data tablet. Ambassador Yuna is requesting to speak with you. She says the Valorian High Elder wishes to meet you personally. T nodded. Tell her I will shuttle down within the hour. And Hanna. Yes, Admiral. Begin coordinating with the relief fleets. I want food, medicine, and construction materials landing on that planet continuously for the next month. The Valorians have lost everything. We need to help them rebuild. Already being arranged, Admiral. The first supply convoys are en route from Earth and the colony worlds. Estimated arrival in 3 days. T allowed himself a small moment of pride. His people were good. They did not wait to be told what to do. They saw what needed to be done and they did it. That was the human way. 1 hour later, he was on a shuttle descending toward the capital city. From the air, the damage was even more shocking than it had appeared on sensors. Entire neighborhoods had been reduced to rubble. Parks and gardens had been burned to ash. The beautiful silver towers that the Valorians had built over centuries lay in broken pieces across the ground. But among the destruction there was also life. Human soldiers were everywhere, working alongside Valorian survivors. They were clearing debris, setting up medical tents, distributing supplies. Someone had already started repairing the main water system. Another team was restoring power to a residential district. The shuttle landed in what had once been a public square. Now it was a landing zone for relief operations. Dozens of ships were coming and going, each one bringing more help. Ambassador Yuna was waiting for him when he stepped off the shuttle. She looked tired. There were dark circles under her eyes, and her uniform was wrinkled and stained. She had not slept in days, but she stood straight and tall, and her eyes were clear. Admiral T, she said, extending her hand. Welcome to Kethai's Prime, or what is left of it. T shook her hand firmly. You did well, Ambassador. Your quick thinking saved many lives. I only made a call. You brought the fleet. We both did our jobs. That is how it works. Yuna led him through the crowded square toward a temporary shelter that had been set up for the Valorian leadership. Along the way, T noticed how the Valorians looked at him, at all the humans. Their silver skin flickered with colors he did not recognize, but their expressions were easy to read. Gratitude, disbelief, wonder. They kept reaching out to touch the human soldiers as they passed, just small touches on the arm or shoulder, like they needed to confirm that the humans were real, that this was not a dream. They cannot believe you came, Yuna explained. In their history, no one has ever come to save them from anything. They have always had to solve their problems alone. The concept of outside help is almost impossible for them to understand. They will need to learn, T said. They are part of the coalition now. They are not alone anymore. The shelter was simple. Plastic walls, temporary lighting, a few tables and chairs. High Elder Torvin was waiting inside with several other Valorian leaders. When T entered, they all stood up. Torvin stepped forward. He was old and tired and clearly overwhelmed by everything that had happened. But there was something new in his eyes, something that had not been there before. Hope. Admiral T, he said, I do not know what words to use. In my language, there is no word for what you have done. We asked for support. We hoped for perhaps a few ships, a few soldiers. Instead, you brought. He stopped, unable to continue. We brought what was necessary, T said simply. But why? We are not powerful. We have nothing to offer you. We cannot repay this debt in 1,000 years. T was quiet for a moment, considering how to explain something that was so basic to humans that they never thought about it. Elder Torvin, he said finally, let me tell you a story. 6 years ago, a Keth raiding party attacked a small human colony. They killed many people and took others as slaves. One of those slaves was my daughter. She was 19 years old. I never saw her again. The room went silent. Torvin's skin flickered with the color of sorrow. For 6 years, I carried that pain with me. Every day, I thought about what I could have done differently. Every night, I dreamed about saving her, but I could not. She was gone, and there was nothing I could do to bring her back. T paused, gathering his thoughts. When I heard that the Keth had attacked your people, I felt something I had not felt in a long time. Purpose. Here was a chance to make sure that no other father would lose a daughter to these monsters. Here was a chance to save people who could not save themselves. Here was a chance to do what I wished someone had done for my colony 6 years ago. He looked Torvin directly in the eyes. I did not come here for revenge. I came here because it was right, because your people were suffering and we had the power to stop it, because that is what humans do. We protect those who need protecting. We fight for those who cannot fight for themselves. Not for payment, not for glory, just because we believe that is what good beings should do. Torvin was crying. Silver tears ran down his gray cheeks and dripped onto the floor. Around him, other Valorian leaders were crying too. We did not know, Torvin whispered. We joined the coalition for trade, for technology. We did not understand what it truly meant to have humans as allies. Now you know, T said. And I promise you this, as long as there are humans in this galaxy, no one will ever harm your people again without facing consequences. You are not alone anymore. You never will be again. He reached out and put a hand on Torvin's shoulder. The old Valorian looked up at him with ancient eyes full of new emotion. How do I thank you? Torvin asked. How does anyone thank someone for saving 4 billion lives? T thought about it for a moment. Then he smiled. It was a small smile but genuine. You do not need to thank us. Just remember this day. Remember what humans will do for their friends. And someday when someone else needs help, be ready to help them in return. That is all we ask. That is all we have ever asked. He looked around the room at the gathered Valorian leaders. The galaxy is a dangerous place, but it does not have to be a cruel place. If we all look out for each other, if we all stand together against those who would do harm, then maybe we can build something better, something worth fighting for. Outside the shelter, human soldiers continued their work, healing the wounded, feeding the hungry, rebuilding what had been destroyed. This was humanity. Not conquerors, not saviors, just beings who had decided that compassion was more important than calculation, that friendship was worth fighting for, that no one should have to face their darkest moments alone. And the Valorians would never forget what they had learned today. 1 year passed. The scars of the Keth invasion were still visible on Kethai's prime, but they were healing. New buildings rose where old ones had fallen. Gardens grew in places that had once been burned. The silver towers were being rebuilt, taller and stronger than before. But the greatest changes were not in the buildings. They were in the people. Ambassador Yuna walked through the capital city on a warm afternoon, watching the activity around her. Valorians moved through the streets with purpose and energy. Children played in the parks. Artists painted murals on the walls of restored buildings. Scientists worked in laboratories that hummed with new discoveries. And everywhere she looked, she saw humans. Not soldiers anymore. Now they were teachers, engineers, doctors, and friends. After the liberation, many human volunteers had chosen to stay on Kethai's Prime. They wanted to help rebuild. They wanted to learn about Valorian culture. They wanted to be part of something new. At first, the Valorians had not known what to make of this. In their history, powerful species took from the weak. They did not give. They did not stay to help. They certainly did not form friendships that crossed species lines. But the humans did not follow those rules. They never had. Yuna stopped at a small cafe that had opened near the main square. It was run by a Valorian family, but the menu included human dishes alongside traditional Valorian foods. A sign in the window said, "Friends welcome," in both languages. She ordered a cup of tea and sat at a table by the window. Outside, a group of Valorian children ran past, chasing a human boy who was laughing and shouting something in broken Valorian. Their silver skins flickered with the colors of joy and excitement. Ambassador Yuna, a voice interrupted her thoughts. She looked up to see High Elder Torvin approaching her table. He looked different than he had a year ago. Younger, somehow, stronger. The weight of despair had lifted from his shoulders. "Elder Torvin, please sit down." He settled into the chair across from her and ordered his own drink. For a moment, they simply sat together in comfortable silence, watching the activity outside. "1 year," Torvin said finally. "It has been 1 year since your people saved us." "1 year," Yuna agreed. "How are your people doing?" Torvin considered the question carefully. "We are different, changed. Before the invasion, we were innocent. We did not understand how dangerous the galaxy could be. We thought that if we were peaceful and kind, others would be peaceful and kind in return. And now we understand that peace must be protected. Kindness must be defended. The galaxy is full of species like the Keth, who see gentleness as weakness and will exploit it without mercy." He paused. "But we have also learned that the galaxy contains species like humans, beings who will cross the stars to help strangers, beings who will fight and die for people they have never met." He looked at Yuna with eyes that held deep emotion. "We were naive before. We thought we could exist alone, separate from the rest of the galaxy. Now we know that no one can exist alone. We need each other, all of us." Yuna nodded slowly. "That is a hard lesson to learn." "Yes, but it is better to learn it and survive than to ignore it and be destroyed." Torvin took a sip of his drink. "Do you know what the children are being taught in our schools now?" "Tell me." "They are learning human history, human culture, human philosophy. We have made it a required subject for all Valorian students." Yuna was surprised. "Why?" "Because we want them to understand what it means to be like humans. Your species has suffered so much. Wars, plagues, disasters, conflicts that nearly destroyed you. But you never gave up. You never stopped fighting for each other. You never lost the belief that life was worth protecting, even when everything seemed hopeless." Torvin leaned forward intently. "That is what we want our children to learn. Not how to fight, not how to make weapons, but how to have courage, how to stand up for those who cannot stand up for themselves, how to be the kind of beings who will travel across the galaxy to help a friend in need." Yuna felt something warm spread through her chest. This was why she had become an ambassador, not for politics or diplomacy, but for moments like this. Moments when cultures connected and understood each other. "You honor us," she said quietly. "We honor the truth," Torvin replied. "And the truth is that humans showed us something we never knew existed. A species that measures its strength not by what it can take, but by what it can give. a species that finds its greatest glory not in conquest but in compassion. He stood up from the table and looked out the window at the busy street. News of what happened here has spread across the galaxy. Every species knows the story now. The Valorians asked for support and the humans sent a fleet, 3,000 ships, 50,000 soldiers, an entire military mobilized in days to save a species they barely knew. Torvin turned back to face her. The Keth Empire is terrified. They have withdrawn from all their aggressive positions. They have released thousands of slaves they captured from other worlds. They have signed treaties promising to never attack coalition members again. Fear is a powerful motivator, Yuna observed. Yes, but it is more than fear. Other species are joining the coalition now, dozens of them, species who were afraid to join before because they thought no one would protect them. Now they know better. Now they know that humans keep their promises. He reached across the table and took Yuna's hand. His silver skin was warm against her human flesh. You did not just save our world, Ambassador. You changed the galaxy. You showed everyone what is possible when beings choose to help each other instead of exploit each other. You gave hope to species who had none. Yuna squeezed his hand gently. We did not do it for fame or influence, Elder. We did it because it was right. I know, that is exactly what makes it so powerful. You did not ask for anything in return. You did not demand payment or loyalty or submission. You simply saw people in trouble and came to help. That is unprecedented. In all our history, in all our records of the galaxy, no species has ever done that before. He released her hand and stepped back. The children ask me sometimes why humans are different, why you care so much about others, why you risk your lives for strangers. I never know how to answer them. Yuna thought about the question. It was something she had wondered herself many times. Why were humans the way they were? What made them different from other species in the galaxy? I think, she said slowly, it is because we remember what it was like to be alone. For most of our history, humans thought we were the only intelligent species in the universe. We looked up at the stars and saw nothing but emptiness. We felt small and isolated and afraid. She stood up and walked to the window. Then we reached the stars and discovered we were not alone. There were hundreds of species out there, thousands. We were no longer isolated. We had neighbors, friends, family. She turned back to Torvin. I think that is why we react so strongly when someone we care about is in danger, because we remember the loneliness, we remember the fear, and we never want anyone else to feel that way. When someone is in trouble, we do not think about the cost or the risk. We just go. Because being alone was so terrible that we will do anything to make sure no one else has to experience it. Torvin was silent for a long moment, absorbing her words. Finally, he nodded. Perhaps that is the lesson we should teach our children. Not just how to be brave, but how to remember, how to hold onto the knowledge of pain so that we can recognize it in others and act to prevent it. That would be a good lesson, Yuna agreed. Outside, the sun was setting over the rebuilt city. Orange and pink light painted the silver towers in warm colors. The sounds of the busy street drifted through the open window, children laughing, merchants calling, friends greeting each other. Sounds of life, sounds of hope, sounds of a world that had been saved by strangers who had become family. Ambassador, Torvin said, may I ask you one more question? Of course. If this happened again, if another species called for help, would humans come again? Would you do all of this again? Yuna smiled. It was the same smile she had shown him a year ago in the bunker, when the world was burning and hope was dying. Elder Torvin, we would come every single time, without hesitation, without calculation, without asking whether it was worth the cost, because that is who we are. That is what it means to be human. She walked to the door of the cafe and paused, looking back at him one last time. We asked for support. The humans sent a fleet. Torvin laughed softly. I think that phrase will be repeated for 1,000 years. Good, Una said. Let it be repeated. Let the entire galaxy know. Let every species understand what it means to threaten someone under human protection. She stepped outside into the warm evening air. Because next time it might not just be 3,000 ships. Next time it might be 10,000, or 50,000, or every ship humanity has. Behind her, Torvin watched her go with wonder in his ancient eyes. Then he turned back to look at his rebuilt city, his recovering people, his hopeful world. The humans had come. They would always come. And the galaxy would never be the same.